Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Mo Love Podcast, Honest Conversations with Mo. Glad to be back. Wanted to, tap in with you guys on this Memorial Day, and then also in line with it being Mental Health Awareness Month. Just had a few things on my mind. I guess I just wanted to talk about and delve into. And I guess, just get right into it. And I guess for this episode, what I kind of want to dive into is this idea of timing and belonging. Belonging in the sense of the relationships we choose to cultivate and how we connect ourselves to those relationships, the different, the different communities we align ourselves with and that we're in, that we connect with and, relate the most to, and then also belonging in the sense of how are we looking at how we're building these relationships, whether it is romantic, whether it's personal, professional, um, and then how do we feel this sense of belonging? How do we connect ourselves to be a part of something? As we all know, it's human nature to want to belong to something, wanting to connect and be a part of something, and also an understanding the time that it takes to kind of cultivate that. Sometimes we feel as if we're not instantly a part of something, or we instantly don't build that rapport with an individual that, oh, they don't connect with us. And then also in the sense of detaching the sense of belonging that we have to belong to others, that in order to kind of cultivate this sense of belonging, this human connection, it requires, being, solitary in the sense of how are you in tune with yourself when you're alone, and then how does that correlate with you being a part of something? How is it you're truly choosing to connect to this thing? And sometimes we kind of struggle with that sense of belonging. I know I do, in the sense of for myself, how I engage with belonging in the past or being a part of things is I keep myself, at arm's length with people, and feel as if I never belonged to anything or was a part of anything. But also in understanding that I obviously created that for myself, and I'll kind of dive deeper into that in a little bit. But in the sense of belonging, that we kind of have to figure out what it is that we want to belong to. What is it that we're kind of seeking? If it is something that we're seeking, and then what from what we are seeking, how are we actually putting action into it? How are we actually practicing what we're seeking and what we're looking for? And then that comes with that timing piece of, hey, am I putting in that work? Am I putting in those 1,500 hours of not only being with yourself and understanding yourself, but also in how you're choosing to connect with others? Because you can only belong to something if you accept that you already belong to yourself. And then in that, with that sense of belonging, we kind of seek it and we kind of chase it, to where a point where we kind of create this inner turmoil within ourselves because we feel like, oh, it's not up to the standard of what we're seeking. But in reality, we, never knew what we were actually seeking because we were never privy to it, or we never actually understood what it is that we wanted, because we kind of created this narrative for ourselves that, hey, I guess it's not meant for me to, belong to something. Um, and then I guess to get into that, I kind of want to get into the next topic of, exclusion versus mutuality in the sense of belonging. And that what I mean is how we, as I kind of mentioned earlier, where I know myself and where I, you know, keep people's at arm's length, and keep people at a distance because of my inner trust issues, but then also understanding that I've kind of created this excluding myself from things and kind of excluding myself because I've kind of created that persona of, being alone, or this, individualistic, kind of approach to things where, oh, I don't, need anybody and things like that. And it's hard to kind of create that belonging when we're purposely excluding ourselves, and when we're creating those personas of, hey, I'm a lone wolf, and things like that. And it kind of hinders us from being a part of something because as long as we choose to believe these ideals and these concepts of ourselves that we're not meant to belong to something, then we'll consistently not belong to something and not ever feel we belong to something. That's how we kind of choose to exclude ourselves from whatever it is we're seeking, um, in this life, and then, throughout our world. In any capacity, whether it is personally, professionally, romantically, that when we create this inclusion, that we're choosing to hinder ourselves from real connection. And that's where I also appreciate the sense of mutuality, the opposite of this, because of when you find those people that, despite you choosing to create this persona for yourself, still understanding, hey, this is who that person is, and choosing to, respect your boundaries and understanding, hey, no matter what, you know, we're still good. And for me, I obviously appreciate the people in my life that, as I said, I make it very known that, I keep myself at length with those people that have still chosen to stick by my side. Friends, family that I even kind of push away. And then I'm working on the romantic piece. I guess still working on that aspect, obviously, but just in just understanding that those people are choosing to accept me for who I am, um, regardless of whatever persona I choose to create, because they know, they see me for me and see me in my whole essence, and not just this ideal image I've chosen to create, because they know I do still crave that, that sense of belonging. I just don't know how to, I guess, seek it, and obviously that comes with time. As I mentioned, it comes with time, comes with practice. But we have to also be aware of how we're connecting with people, and mutuality isn't just the things you have in common with another person. It's that understanding of respecting each other's boundaries, and kind of being there for each other, regardless of what appears, or what comes to light. Because when we are mutually, being creating a mutually beneficial relationship, in terms of what, in our relationships, it has to be genuine, and genuine in how we're accepting ourselves for not only who we are, but we're accepting the people that we connect with as who they are. And I think that's why it's tough when, as for me, as I say, understanding how I took this exclusion and felt like, oh, it was, kind of a good thing, accepting these, tags, and putting attaching these labels to myself, where it felt like, oh, it was okay. But also understanding I was creating that exclusion for myself. I was distancing myself from people to where I wasn't presenting the most authentic version of myself. I was only presenting an ideal image I felt I had to maintain in my, you know, present, relationships and present, connections with others, because as I said, I created that exclusion. I've created that divide from where I didn't allow others to really truly see me for me. As I said, that's why I appreciate those that were willing to see me for me. Whether that be, as I said, it could be relationships that I've had for years, um, or it could be, just that connection with, a stranger that you weren't, aware of, that we, are able to see that sense of belonging, seeing that need for that connection in others, to where we accept ourselves. So I, kind of want you guys kind of dive into your own lives, as you look at how you're creating this exclusion. If you are choosing to, exclude yourself, um, how have you created exclusion into your own life, or how have you chosen to exclude yourself to not be a part of things, when it's not the fact that people are not, including you in things, or people are not inviting you to anything, or, things of that nature, but you've already created this ideal in your mind that, hey, oh, I'm a loner, this, I'm that, whatever, descriptor you've attached to your own sense of belonging, that creates this divide, to where you're not really creating those healthy mutual relationships. And I think from there, when we create that exclusion, we conflate mutuality as well, because we think, oh, as long as it's, benefiting me, then, oh, it, works, or as long as, it's some aspect of, quid pro quo, where we're, assisting ourselves just in the most surface level, that's not true mutuality. It's not a true, connection. And I think that's where that distance continues, because we're still chasing people to see us as us. We're chasing to, feel human, to feel seen, to feel wanted, to feel a part of something. Um, and, feeling, part of a community, and to be a part of something takes time, and it takes work, and it's not something that's instant, because as with anything, as, building a business, as with, becoming the greatest athlete in the world, whatever, it requires that work. And even in the sense of that human connection, of that piece of belonging, it requires work as well, of not only understanding yourself, but understanding what parts of yourself are you not only looking to fulfill, that you feel like you're not able to provide yourself, and you feel like you have to fulfill it through others. And I think that's where that sometimes people see, oh, they're able to, find that sense of connection, because, hey, oh, you're able to fulfill this part of me, because, I'm unable to. And that's where, it hinders us and it hurts us, because when we see ourselves for who we are, and we aren't chasing anything or seeking anything from others, and, seeking that from ourselves, then that's when we're creating those healthy, mutually beneficial relationships, and creating that healthy sense of community. Because I think the thing about community is, sometimes we can become cult leaders ourselves, in the sense of where we feel that, oh, as long as it benefits us, then, it's all good. And I want to, I guess that's where I want to go into next, in regards to community, is how cults, uh, the idea of, us cultivating our own cults versus finding and seeking solidarity in those that actually see us for ourselves. Because, as I said, like, we can become cult leaders because a community, like obviously co-leader is, a community where it just benefits one, versus in solidarity, it's a community that benefits all. And I think when we see these parts of ourselves where we're only seeking to benefit ourselves, we're creating unhealthy communities that are cult like, because we feel like, oh, hey, as long as, I was able to, gain this for myself, or I was able to, you know, get this and, still remain true and, forget about, everybody else, kind of around you, that kind of creates that tension and that divide, because it doesn't really allow you to truly grow, because you're not able to accept your own kind of faults in that sense. So I think when we're cultivating these communities, I think we have to kind of be mindful and be aware of, hey, are we being cult leaders, subconsciously, or are we, truly seeking solidarity, truly creating relationships and connections that are mutually beneficial to all, and that are, solid at their core, and where it just is not benefiting one or the other. I think that's the important thing about belonging, in all aspects. As I said, like, I think that's where, even in the sense of, romantic relationships for myself, it wasn't necessarily just, it wasn't necessarily me trying to benefit myself. I think where I got caught up was where I was trying to find relationships that were where I turned into a follower of the cult, where I was just making it beneficial to the other person versus making it, you know, solid at its core, where both parties were mutually beneficial. And I think that's where uh, I lost myself kind of along the way in that relationship. And only been in one relationship. It was, 11 months, but in those 11 months, I could see where I wasn't obviously clearly the best version of myself. And because I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I almost kind of, it was almost like where it's kind of connected to, where I was hurting someone that I cared about, but hurting myself at the same time, because I knew this wasn't a mutually beneficial relationship for me at the time. And knowing that I was hurting this individual that I was, caring about at the time, and where, kind of created that distance and created that tension, um, to where, you know, it eventually just led to, a toxic overall relationship, because as I said, I was choosing to exclude myself, choosing to view these ideals about myself while I was in this relationship, and attached my sense of belonging to this other person, um, to where, wasn't necessarily true. So it wasn't necessarily, mutually beneficial relationship. It wasn't something that was truly genuine. It wasn't truly something that I knew at the time that if I kept going at that rate, that, it was just going to continue to lead to overall kind of chaos, and I was going to continue to just, hurt this person. That's why obviously, choosing to end it, and, knowing, as I said, I wasn't in the best space at that point in my life. And the thing is, I kind of dealing with her where I, attach that sense of belonging to that person. So I think, as I said, we can enter relationships and become, like I said, we can either become the cult leader, or become the follower in the cult, or create within our own minds a cult, where instead we need to seek kind of those relationships that are, you know, benefit all, to where it's not codependent, where it's not, toxic. As I said, that takes time. Nothing's, instant, nothing's quick, but all of that, kind of takes time. So I guess all to say is, when you're seeking belonging, how are you choosing to, cultivate your community and being aware and mindful? Is this just something that's mutually beneficial to me, or is this mutually beneficial to all parties? So I think we have to be mindful of how we're choosing to feed ourselves, how we're choosing to view what ways we see relationships, see connections, um, and see how we are hurting the people around us by hurting ourselves by attaching these tags, attaching these descriptors to ourselves that doesn't lead to true belonging, because we feel as if we don't belong to anything. So I think that's the thing about timing too. With timing, is sometimes we know, it's almost like we know to get out of a bad situation, but at some point we feel like, oh, maybe not yet, or maybe it's not till we touch the stove and realize it's actually hot, and where we almost burn ourselves, that we realize, oh, it's time to get out. So I think that's the thing about belonging too, is don't seek out connection just for the sake of seeking out connection. Truly develop these relationships that you have in your life to where you're not only healthy and mutually beneficial, but it's at its core, it works for all. It's helping not only the growth of yourself, but the growth of the people that you're connecting with, because that's truly what healthy friendships, healthy romantic relationships, healthy family connections, that's what that's where that stems from. And knowing that, hey, we're truly connecting with the people we care about because we're choosing to really learn them for who they are, instead of dismissing them, or because of how we internalize our own kind of trauma, our own descriptors, that we're choosing to not really truly create that healthy sense of belonging and that true connection. And then, yeah, that kind of, with that sense of belonging, it's kind of tough too, because when you're choosing to be a part of something, sometimes it's hard not feeling like at first you kind of have to alienate yourself. But it's not necessarily alienating yourself, it's learning yourself, it's understanding yourself. Because when you're choosing to alienate yourself, you're, as I said, you're attaching that descriptor, and now you're feeling as if, hey, this is not something that's for me, when in actuality, you don't know until you actually, attempt it, or actually choose to really dive deep and dig deep and do the work that requires, building that relationship, or building, or getting to know the person. I think, these days we instantly dismiss other people because if they don't instantly, connect with our ideals or our beliefs, that, oh, that's not the person for me. But if you, take the time to truly connect with someone and truly understand them, then you'll really see, hey, oh, I see why I connect with this person. And also, I guess I would also want to say, we don't have to conflate connection with, or belonging with, how long, kind of time span, and putting a time stamp on things. Because I think that's the hard part about, having friends or having any type of connection, is knowing that at some point they're gonna end. So I think it's under, being aware of that too, of where you're not putting a timestamp on anything, and just allowing things to just naturally progress, instead of automatically jumping to, oh, when am I expecting this to end? Because that as I said, that creates that inclusion, that creates that divide within yourself, that creates that divide with the other person, to where you're not truly getting to, learn this person. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to dive into in terms of timing and belonging. Next, I want to, of course, get into the NBA playoffs as we are in the conference finals. The Dallas Mavericks are up 3-0 on the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. And the Boston Celtics are up 3-0 on the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. But to recap, I guess, how we got to this point, where, I guess since the last episode, where Indiana obviously beat the Knicks in a 7-game series, as I kind of figured, where Game 7, where the Knicks, as I said, kind of ran out of steam, ran out of gas. And then Boston kind of, walking down. At this point, I don't even remember who was Boston playing at the time. Wasn't Zach? I completely forgot who Boston was playing. That's how quick that series went by. Who was Boston playing? Boston was playing the Cavs. That's funny. Well, I can't believe I completely forgot that series. Went 4-1. But yeah, Boston beating the Cavs. And then on the West, Minnesota slaying the defending champions in Game 7, defeating the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series, which I think eventually cost them heading into this series, which I'll talk into a little bit. But before that, the Mavs winning their own series against the OKC Thunder. I want to say they beat OKC. I want to say it was in 6. Yeah, it was in 6. The young upstart Thunder, who are going to be completely fine moving forward. They got a young team. It's going to be interesting what type of moves they make during the off season. That's going to be fun. But back into the Western Conference Finals, as I said, the Mavs up 3-0. And I think what hurt the Minnesota was they obviously put their all into, wanting to take down the Nuggets and, win that series in 7. And I think also their pride coming into the series kind of hurt them, and where they're hanging their hat on their defense, to where they're playing individual team defense versus the Mavs, who are playing, team defense, zones, throw in, double teams at Conley, to where they're just, harassing them versus Minnesota. I mean, we saw Game 1, Kyrie. Ant-Man said he wanted Kyrie. Kyrie dropped 24 in that first half. Luka took it over in the second half. Mavs win Game 1. Game 2, I want to say Kyrie kind of struggled first half. Yeah, Game 2, Kyrie struggled first half. I think it was Luka. I want to say it was kind of even Game 2 between the both of them. But yeah, Ant still guarding, dead tired, no legs on the offensive end, to where it kind of hurt him. And now, Game 3, another tough game, another tough loss. And I mean, Dallas just keeps beating them the same thing. Lobs on, this drop coverage that they're playing with Rudy Gobert, and they're constantly switching. Obviously, Game 2, Luka get the game winner on Rudy, where he purposely seeked out that matchup to put Rudy on the island on the pick and roll, knew they were going to switch. We saw the end result of that. And then you had Kyrie continuing Game 3, him and Luka, both 33 each. And it's showing where the Mavs are, they're figuring it all out, and they're putting it together to where, they're playing like a unit. They're, playing solid. They're understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses on the floor, where not only between the two stars of Kyrie and Luka, them taking turns if this one's, if Kyrie's struggling in the first half or Luka's struggling in the second half, one or the other's gonna, come and help carry the scoring load, but also in including, Gafford, including Lively, including PJ Washington, including, Derrick Jones Jr. So they're constantly, playing together as a unit versus where Minnesota, I mean, just very, seems like I so ball a lot where Ant-Man's trying to do his best to push them over the top. Obviously, Cat's not playing that great. Rudy just seems to be a liability on the defensive end as they're creating these mismatches for Kyrie and Luka to kind of take over. So, and then on the other side, I think Indiana, they had game one. Should have won game one, but obviously costly turnover on, 10 seconds to go where, just goes off of Siakam. Jaylen Brown hits that corner three to take it into overtime. And then Boston took it from there in OT, where Tatum carried them in OT. And then game two just dominated the Pacers. Game three played down to the Pacers, but eventually, realized who they were and eventually beating a Halliburton-less Pacers team for game three. So I do think both of these teams, obviously Mavs, Celtics, we'll see in the finals. We're going to be a fun finals. It's going to be a fun storyline. Kyrie back at TD Garden. Oh man, it's gonna be fun. He got his man Luka. We're gonna be seeing the Sage in before uh, game one of the finals. Oh, it's gonna be a great series. The storylines are so compelling. Who's gonna get their first chip potentially? Kyrie and Luke. Well, Kyrie already has a chip, but Luka getting his first chip. Tatum and Brown finally getting over the hump and winning after what I want to say 5 straight Eastern Conference Finals, a Finals appearance where they lost to Golden State. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think it's if they both teams win and sweep, it's an 8-game difference, which I don't think. I mean, we'll see. I think both series in Eastern Conference Finals Western Conference Finals will go at least 5, maybe 5, 6. I think Minnesota can come back and give themselves like that false sense of hope where Dallas, because I think Minnesota has had a couple of these games that they should have won, but I don't think they're playing up to their true ability. And then also, they're just dog tired from that series and uh, slaying, Jokic and the Nuggets, where it took a lot out of them, and now they're just not able to turn it back on for this series against the Mavs. But yeah, we're gonna have a interesting finals, which I think, barring historical comeback from either the Pacers or uh, Timberwolves, I think we see Dallas and the Celtics in the finals. Obviously, I'll be rooting for Dallas, Um, but I think that series is going to be interesting. I don't know if I want to give my prediction. Actually, I'll say I think this is a series for Kyrie to win. I think he wins it. He wins the championship in Boston in front of their fans, and I think he does go 7. I think Kyrie wins it in Boston. Gets his second chip. Luka gets his first chip. And that incredible team. Mark Cuban. My dog Mark Cuban's building out there. He's going to be insufferable during the offseason. Mark is going to be insufferable during the offseason. But what he's, uh, done for that organization in terms of who he's hired, Nico Harrison, the staff, Jay Kidd is built with, Dudley, his assistant coaches, and then just the pieces that they knew they needed, the trade deadline moves that Nico Harrison made during getting PJ Washington from the Hornets, getting Gafford. Um, yeah, they just made solid moves and showing, hey, this is a team that has put in the work to potentially win the chip. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna, be it for sure be an entertaining NBA Finals. Drew guarding Kyrie. Uh, I think Derek White might be on Luca. Uh, I think they might have Drew on Luca and Kyrie, Derek White on Kyrie. Could be that or interchangeable, where Tatum and Brown can chill, can ball. So it's gonna be interesting. Does Porzingis come back? Do they rush Porzingis back? That's gonna be interesting as well. But yeah, the finals are gonna be fun. And speaking of what has been fun, the WNBA early season thus far, like how it's just been so fun to watch. Not only them getting the love and the attention and notoriety that the league deserves. Obviously, Caitlin Clark's getting a lot of backlash because of, I guess, this, where people are saying, obviously, she's bringing all the attention to the league, and part of it is, of course, all the young rookies have been incredible. Not only Caitlin, but Angel, Cameron Brink, Rakia Jackson, Camilla. Hope once Camilla gets healthy for the Chicago Sky, is going to be fun to watch. Kate Martin and with the Aces is hooping. Aaliyah Edwards and Washington, trying to figure things out. So this rookie class has definitely, come in and made an impact to the league. But I think it's also understanding the talent and really like seeing people truly pay attention to the talent around the league. Like Connecticut Suns are still undefeated with their duo of DeWanna Bonner trio, honestly, of DeWanna Bonner, Brianna Jones, Alyssa Thomas, just hoopers. Nafisa Collier with the Lynx getting buckets. Kayla McBride, I think, had 29 the other night. Enrique Dallas had a 40-point game recently, and she's carrying the Wings. And then, I think with Satu out thus far, um, who will another team? Obviously, Mystics. They're having a rough year. 0-6. Haven't got a win yet. We've seen the Fever just get their first win. Caitlin getting her first win, beating the Sparks, which was an incredible game. But it's just interesting to see the overall talent league, and then that's not even talking about the Las Vegas Aces, who run the league, the Liberty, who are hooping, Seattle Storm with Drew Lloyd getting buckets. So it's just been fun to see the love that the league has been getting, to see the growth, to see how this progresses. Obviously, we already got the expansion team names. The Golden State Valkyries out, got their name officially. The announcement of expansion team in Toronto. The league, of course, building to be a global brand, of course, and wanting to build that international market is going to be fun as they continue to grow the game. So yeah, it's been fun watching the league. Angel Reese be getting buckets. She a hooper. She's fly. She's stylish, but she also understands, the growing pains that it takes to, be a part of the league. A lot of people, pushing the narrative that players should be, grateful that, Caitlin Clark is, providing all this attention to the league, but this is competition. This is sport, and this is the best of the best. So I don't pay attention. Obviously, we give Caitlin her, appreciation and respect for, bringing her fans, her core fans to the league. But I don't think we should, throw all praise to her. Obviously, her and Angel are gonna be the change agents moving forward for the league. As we saw Larry Bird and Magic for the NBA at the time in the her '79. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to see how the WNBA game grows. how, how the rest of the season kind of plays out. I'm excited to see, once the Commissioner Cup comes around, how the league goes. The schedule has been insane, though. I guess, obviously due to the Olympics coming up soon and, creating that Olympic break. So, but the schedule has been insane for certain teams. Obviously, like Indiana, let's say they've already played like 7 games. The Aces like four or five. Mystics obviously we 0-6, so they played 6 games. So the schedule has been insane, but obviously understanding why it's been insane. I'm seeing the brand deals that these incredible women are getting, and then see the ticket revenue that's being generated. But 10 sellout games throughout opening week across the league. Uh, so yeah, it's been fun to watch, and it's gonna be fun to continue to watch how the WNBA season continues to play out. Shout out to DJ Nick Carrington on Suns, strapping up, getting buckets. Yeah, I mean, it's just been fun all across the WNBA. Lexi Brown had like a 20-point game. Cameron Brink, I want to say last night, had 21. She's she is a rim protector. I want to say she's already like top 5 in the league in blocks. Yeah, it's insane. It's fun. Rakia Jackson, getting buckets off the bench, pure shot maker, and her for the Sparks. So yeah, it's just the league has just been fun to watch. These rookies, providing that impact, and that fun for the game to grow has been interesting as well. So yeah, and then lastly, I'll get into, of course, top 4, and I want to switch up top 4 this time around. I want to name my current top 4 WNBA players this season. Instead of doing a favorite album, I'll do my favorite top 4 uh, WNBA players this season thus far. Number one is Asia. This is no particular order. 1, Asia. 2, Arike getting buckets. 3, watching Angel Reese hoop has been fun. And then 4, Nafisa Collier just been hoping, man, for the Lynx. Oh man, I'm gonna do Nafisa Collier and Alyssa Thomas, because Alyssa be getting triple dubs. Also shout out to the New York Liberty. Sabrina, Breanna Stewart getting buckets. But yeah, I think my top 4 will be Asia, Arike, Angel, and 4A is Nafisa Collier. 4B is Alyssa Thomas of the Connecticut Sun. So Asia for the Las Vegas Aces, Arika for the Dallas Wings, Angel, of course, for the Chicago Sky. 4A, we got Nafisa Collier of the Minnesota Lynx, and then 4B, Alyssa Thomas of the Connecticut Sun. And then favorite show to currently watch. I'm watching Hacks. I've been seeing it recently, like on Threads. It caught my attention. I was like, all right, let me try it. And it's an incredible comedy. Obviously, watching my, comfort shows. Been watching a lot of the different FBI series, really mainly like FBI, the main one, and the FBI Most Wanted. Been, good watches. The Shy. Back watching 911. That's been fun this season. And then the Big Cigar. That's been a good show on Apple TV that talks about Huey Newman and the Black Panthers. That's been a fun, good watch. And how he worked with, Bert Schneider to kind of escape and defect to Cuba. It's been a good watch. But yeah, those have been my, kind of shows that I've been watching currently and I've enjoyed. Obviously, watching Yo's Arena podcast has been fun as always. What do I currently have on? Just, constantly, as I say, always learning myself, always figuring out the parts of myself and these kind of descriptors I've attached to myself that I need to evict out of, out of my life and kind of figure out, what truly applies to me in this kind of stage of my life, moving forward. And just kind of, obviously, going out and about, connecting with different people, and just, figuring out what kind of life holds. And, trips, as always, work trips, personal trips. So yeah, just, cultivating experiences for myself and the things that I can take from them. And then, what am I looking forward to? Just learning, man. Just consistently learning to, get better, 1% every day, and, what that leads to, and figuring out, as I said, the parts of myself that, I'm choosing to shed. I think that's the thing about, uh, as I mentioned in this episode about belonging, is with belonging comes choice too. So I think who we're choosing and what we're choosing to belong to as well. So yeah, looking forward to, figuring all that out. So appreciate y'all for listening as always. Y'all, enjoy y'all Memorial Day, hope at least, been healthy mental health awareness month for you all, as well as, moving forward, continue to, stay focused on your mental, your physical, figuring out, the different parts of yourself that, allows you to become better. So as always, appreciate y'all taking the time just to listen. And as always, peace.